Well, hello once again. Uh, Conversations with myself along the lines of the tragic philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche, with my interpretation, because that's what it really means. I left off last time talking about rallying the troops and this and that, but that's not what Nietzsche was about. He wasn't about obtaining followers, just quite the contrary. What he was about was discovering himself, digging down underneath the presumptions of his culture, of his society, as to what this is and what's the meaning of it and what's its worth. And as I'm sitting out here in a blaze of sunshine, right around noontime, it strikes me as it's around that time of high noon, which was a Nietzschean metaphor that he used to demonstrate the moment in which human culture could be 200 years in time, or it could be just next month. Uh, we wake up to the fact that the longest lie, which has cast the longest shadow, is no longer visible because it's high noon. The shadow is shrunk. We see it, things for what they are, as it is. And it doesn't necessarily contain a theological premise, an absolutism, a reality, an ideal that would remove one from living this life despite the loss, the pain, and the suffering. That's part of the tragic philosophy of which we know Nietzsche was fond of pre-Socratic Greek philosophy, as well as the Platonian Socrates model that he had a love-hate relationship with. But the pre-Socratics came from their own point of view, came from their own inner strength to see what this is. And so Nietzsche has spent his life realizing the decaying values of his own life in order to create values for himself. And so this is what he's imparting in his philosophy. It's not a systematic philosophy by any means. And so people have misinterpreted it, like the Nazis. They would have used that rallying call to, the higher man, the Superman, as it was translated. But more appropriately, perhaps the overman, or getting over man, or getting over it man. And I think that's where Nietzsche was coming from. And in my life, it was strange, the parallels that when I first ran into Nietzsche when I was, just in a freshman in college or what have you, I wasn't ready to explore Nietzsche, to see what he had to say, because I had not yet really delved into my own conditioning. I was on the brink of that, and the voyage was starting. And as I went along and went into other stages of concentric circles of becoming who I am and what I am now, at least, I finally realized that I needed to give up some of these values, these ideas that I was carrying around like baggage from my culture. That the morality of my age, the truth of my age, the reason for existence, the meaning of this, my meaning, and it led me to Friedrich Nietzsche, with trepidation. Yes, because, lurking there is God is dead, and gee, who wants to go to hell for eternity? But that was part of what I was coming to overthrow, were these ideas that had been handed down and inculcated in our society, in our way of life for centuries, millennia. And so I approached Nietzsche, and then I realized that, yes, that's what he was doing. He was doing it. And I was doing the same thing. And so I continued to read as much of his writings, albeit in English. No Sprechens die Deutsch here necessarily. So I have to be thankful to the translators along the way, and but that's where I'm getting these ideas. But these ideas actually were, in a sense, coming from me as a human being. The idea that one must shed the skin, one turns over a new leaf, one goes under, as Nietzsche would say of Zarathustra, having to go under among men. And so Nietzsche spent his time with his ideas and his lack of social acceptance, digging down like the mole he described himself as into this fertile undergrowth, into this chaotic Dionysian world. And he was able to bring himself to realize the connection between the pre-Socratic Greeks, who ushered in what we come to know as tragedy, which is drama and comedy. It's the goat song. It's not tragedy, just tears, because those tears may be from an upset stomach because someone doesn't have the stomach for it. Another Nietzschean metaphor, and the Dionysian orchestra dancing away in the pit, despite the ways and means of this world, that is one's suffering, one's contingencies, one's impermanence, one's passing. So it was the way those early peoples learned to cope, and thus tragedy was born, an art form to carry this on. And Nietzsche himself was later to have his vision among the snow and ice of the rocks of Switzerland or someplace, wherever he was, in the mountains there. And in Zarathustra, this image of the Overman approached him. And why is he choosing Zarathustra? Well, as he tells us in his Ecce Homo, his posthumously published autobiography, that Zarathustra, or Zoroaster, at least to his ways of thinking, and to other cultural historians and so forth, was the bringer of the law, the bringer of the morality of the age that locked in the mask that led to finally dissing this world because of either a greater world to come or that this one just doesn't have any meaning anymore. And so that's about where we're at in the stage of things. Nietzsche thought it would take a couple of 100 years or so, before society would suffer from all these cracks in the mask and have tremendous upheavals. And I'm sure he didn't recognize the fact that World War I and II would come along and what the devastation is. But that's the negative Dionysian that he realized would come along with the affirmative Dionysian, which is the ability to cope and handle these changes in one's life, in one's belief, in one's meaning, and make meaning for oneself.